Hi, I'm Max,
Hi,
I'm
Max.
Olivia. And I'm Annie.
and we're with the Cotter Chronicles. Love that word. And we're here today with
Julia Huffman.
Julia Hoffman. All right. So, would you tell us a little bit about the upcoming Wolf Day at the Minnesota Capitol and what will be going on that day?
Okay. Um, well, I know that the Wolf Day is basically hosted by a group called Howling for Wolves. And the group started, I think it was about 3 years ago. And the reason why they started was wolves were removed from the endangered species list. And within a couple of months, there was legislation to start hunting wolves. So, Howling for Wolves started to educate people about that issue and let them know that wolves were being hunted just off the endangered species list. So, this is a way to get people together and to educate them about the legislation. There's a lot of things happening right now federally with a lot of petitions for wolves to be removed again from the endangered species list. And if that does happen, unfortunately, states like Minnesota are prepared to start hunting them. So, they want to educate people about the value of the wolf, and they want people to know that wolves are an important part of our ecosystem. So that's the main thing that they'll be doing at Wolf Day. So it's a great event. I hope you can go.
I just have one more question.
Yes.
What did making a movie about wolves teach you about being a human?
What did making a movie about wolves teach me about being a human? It's probably one of the best questions I've ever gotten. I better sit and be mindful about that answer. I think what making the film about wolves taught me about being a human is that I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility as a member of a part of this human tribe that we're in to protect the land and the wildlife. And that if I'm not paying attention, then sometimes things happen like hunting and trapping wolves that I don't think is morally and ethically responsible. And so what I learned that, it is my responsibility to pay attention, to make sure I understand what's happening in our legislation and what's happening in our governments, and pay attention. And if I find something like the wolf hunt that I feel is wrong, then whether it's making a movie about it or writing letters or telling my friends, that it's my responsibility to let people know about it and to let people know why I think it's important to do something about it. Yeah.
Okay. How did the wolf in your living room inspire the medicine of the wolves?
Oh, okay. Wow. How did the wolf in my living room inspire the medicine of the wolf? Okay. Another great question. Jeez, you guys are amazing. Well, long story short, when I was 1 years old, I might cry. Okay. When I was 1 years old, I had a dog named Bozo. And I was a very sensitive child, and Bozo was my best friend, and we do everything together. And I feel like part of the inspiration for this film, Medicine of the Wolf, really is a thank you, not only to Bozo, who gave me so much, but also to all the dogs that have been in my life. Because I don't know if you know this, but the wolf is a distant relative of the dog. So if it wasn't for the wolf, we wouldn't have any dogs. Yeah.
I read about wolf advocates in Idaho. What could you tell us a little bit about what these people do?
Okay. Wolf advocates in Idaho, it's very similar to what they do in other states, which is they pay attention to what's happening legislatively. They send newsletters out and emails out and just keep people in the know about what's happening, because there's a lot of back and forth right now with the wolf issue. So unfortunately, we are hunting and trapping wolves in Idaho right now. In the Great Lakes region, they're protected under the Endangered Species Act, and they were relisted about a year ago. But in Idaho in 2011, we started hunting wolves because of a rider bill. It's very confusing and convoluted, but we've been hunting wolves the longest out in Idaho. And so advocates have a pretty big job to do. And they've been petitioning the government to relist the wolves. They go out and they educate like they do in Minnesota. They have wolf days and things like that where they, pass out information and educate people about the value of wolves. So they've got a pretty big job out there. And the sad thing is they do things out there like aerial hunting, which is they get up in helicopters and they shoot wolves out of their helicopters. And, many of us believe that is incredibly cruel and inhumane and should not be happening. So the people in Idaho are trying to let the rest of the country know this is happening. So if there's enough attention out in Idaho, maybe the politicians will listen to the people. And a lot of the people in Idaho are actually against the hunt, but, there's a lot of pro-hunting groups that are for the hunt. So it's a pretty controversial issue. But they have a big job in Idaho. They really do.
So I loved the quote on your blog, which said, "There are some who can live without wild things and some who cannot." Will you tell us what this quote means to you?
That was a quote by Aldo Leopold, and he was incredibly influential in this film. He's written a lot about wolves and his experience with wolves. But to me, what that quote means is, in my mind, the wolf represents the wild. It really does. And the wolf was actually here on this planet before we were. And in my mind, our ancestors, the Native Americans who were in this country, they were, in essence, a part of that wildness. And I think it's important for us to respect the wilderness and understand that it teaches us things about ourselves that some of us have lost. There's lots of wisdom that we learn from the wildlife. Just going out and backpacking or being in nature, I think, can be quite a spiritual experience for many of us. And I grew up in the country, so that was my connection to, say, a spiritual life. Just being under the stars and for many, just hearing a wolf howl is their connection to the wild. I think it's our connection to a wild part of us that many of us have. Somewhere inside there is a wildness of our spirit. And to me, to kill an animal like the wolf is killing a place in our own selves. And, there's a responsibility there to protect that.
And then on a blog, you posted that the U.S. House of Representatives will be voting on anti-wolf and wildlife legislation. Would you tell us a little bit about this bill and why it's important?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's a very convoluted issue, and there's back and forth and back and forth. Wolves were taken off the endangered species list. They were delisted like 2 years ago. Was it 2 years or 3 years ago? Then they were put back on it, and now they're threatened to be taken off it again. So this is huge battles going on between different parties, right? Some want to hunt the wolf and see the wolf taken off the endangered species list, and then other people want to protect the wolf and see the value of the wolf and want to keep it protected. So there's these two groups that are battling each other, both thinking they're right. But right now, there's several Republicans that have several rider bills. The rider bill is an attachment to a bigger bill. And I'm getting lost. What was the question?
Would you tell us a little bit about the anti-wolf and wildlife legislation bill and why it's important?
why the anti-wolf legislation bill is important. I actually think it's not important because it's anti-wolf. I think it's. I think that the group that is behind that wants to see the wolf wiped out, basically, and doesn't see the value of the wolf. And I think that anything that's anti-wildlife is dangerous. And I don't think that science is behind that, and I don't think it's I don't think it's ethically correct to sport hunt any animal. That we shouldn't be doing that anymore. You know, like I was talking about the responsibility that we have. There's really no reason in my mind that we should be hunting wolves. So I think it's dangerous to get things. I think it's dangerous to feed anything that is anti any kind of animal. There's great value in the wolf. You guys did a great job. It was very
Thank you so much.
very
so
thorough
much.
questions.
Thank you, Julie.
I'm so impressed.
Thank you.
What
Thank
grade
you
are
so
you guys
much.
in?
We're in 8th.
We're in
Eighth grade?
Yeah, I'm in seventh.
Seventh grade. Wow. So impressive.
Take a look at this, its posture and how big it is, and you would automatically be scared of it. But in reality, it's just a loving creature. It just wants to be loved, like anybody and anything else. It just wants to be loved. It wants to be.